Fort Totten Water Battery was built in 1862 opposite Fort Skylar in the Bronx to protect the greater New York City region from invasion during that time. Obsolete and abandoned before it was ever completed, the water battery is a rare Civil War-era remnant, majestic in its incompletion, and relatively hidden in Northeast Queens. But as the battery continues to remain unknown to most, investments in preserving its history and increasing visitor access has helped inspire public interest in this remote Queens park.
Fort Totten is a peninsula in Northeast Queens, and when this fort was being constructed, was very remote and continues to be remote to this day.
There's nowhere in New York you can go to really get an experience of the Civil War. And Fort Totten, which is virtually unknown to everybody, is a place where you can.
You walk away, impressed by these massive granite blocks that are there. Military technology sped up so quickly during the Civil War. By the time they were done building, it was obsolete.
There are marks from the test fire on the second floor of the water battery. On the right side of the wall are two craters, and the original artillery is still lodged inside the wall.
It's a really special spot. You understand where you are in New York City, and you really understand why the fort is here in the first place because of its location. This is very unusual in that this is former federal property. We had to apply to receive the property roughly 20 years ago, and we still have a relationship with the federal government. It is this kind of juxtaposition between a park and then all of these, government entities that occupy space here.
One of the ranger's secrets, I can tell you, is that there is not a secret tunnel that goes from Fort Totten Park over to Fort Skylar. We've looked for it. A lot of people have looked for it. The battery itself was constructed in the 1860s. They didn't even have the technology yet at the time, so unfortunately there is not a secret tunnel going under the Long Island Sound, but there are lots of other tunnels that you can explore. And in order to get to the battery, you have to go down a long transport tunnel. And when you first come out, you see the fort all at once. It's a beautiful, shining structure, and just being inside of it, you really feel that you've walked into a piece of history.
First you have the battery, which was built in the 1860s. By the time it was completed, and it was never actually fully completed, it was obsolete. So they went a little more up the hill and they built the Endicott battery, which was a series of mortars and cannons and machine guns, and they would upgrade it over time. But it's made out of poured concrete and steel, which doesn't really stand the test of time. The weather's going to beat it down, which it has done and it continues to do. It almost has an artistic feel to it. Where you go back in time, it's kind of creepy and interesting and fascinating all at the same time.
In the city, we have all of these spaces, especially in New York, that are so overdone, overprogrammed, bright, flashy, shiny. When you go into a preserved site and you move through it, and the stories are left the way they were when they were left there. Nobody's tampered with them. They're stepping literally in the footsteps of somebody who was there 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 80 years ago, which is why, again, I think abandoned spaces in New York, although they are so rare now, are extremely special.
The ability to find solitude in a public setting is a challenge. What the general public's feeling is of not wanting this to be overprogrammed, to be able to preserve that. And there is value in that. I like creative programming, but it has to mesh with the feel of a place, of a park. I really do think there's value in preserving these opportunities for people to find solitude in a public space.
So as we all work to preserve these histories and provide access to these structures, we face a unique challenge in trying to balance solitude and activation in our city's parks. And as the debate over how to best utilize public spaces continues, we should all stop to appreciate these hidden gems and recognize the ways that their stories help inspire our futures and our parks.